This is Decision 78 in Alabama. The run for Room 101. Live from the studios of W.
Gentlemen, for welcome.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to move that we adjourn, but that we leave the journal open so all the necessary procedural matters can be taken care of.
I want to announce the vote. Question on the motion to adjourn. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
5% of
By the
this
time
are
Representative
1.5
Bobby
million.
Crow of Jasper made that
At the
motion in the
present
House,
rate,
the
we
Senate
have it
had
figured that
already
you're
adjourned
receiving
under the
somewhere
same
in the
conditions.
neighborhood of 1.3
The lawmakers
million.
had passed and
So
sent to the
right off,
governor
we're
for
going
his
to be an
signature
increase
those
going to
items
the
he
dry
requested they
counties.
act on in the special session.
Now,
The property
dry
tax
counties
relief bill
now
and the
in
bond issues,
TVA
which are
area
constitutional amendments, will now have to be
receive any of
approved
this
by the
liquor money.
voters. Governor George Wallace got the attention of the legislature, and it acted in record time, wrapping up its work in about 25 hours ahead of schedule. The 7 items in the governor's call passed almost unchanged. The $1.18 billion education budget is the biggest in the state's history. Money will be prorated if incoming revenues are insufficient to cover the $7 million imbalances in the budget. The major factor that slowed down the quick passage of the education budget was the adoption of a dues checkoff provision for college faculty members. Those opposed to it say the provision opened up the door for the recognition of unions in teaching ranks. The Alabama Education Association supporters held firm to the appropriation in the budget. It was passed in the closing moments of the session after some minor differences had been worked out in a House and Senate conference committee. The Tennessee Valley Authority bill, which the governor wanted the lawmakers to work out, sets up a new distribution formula for some of the money paid to the general fund by TVA instead of paying property taxes. The measure was amended to take away state liquor profits from the state's dry counties. It also affects those counties that are dry that are not served by TVA. The vote for passage of the measure upsets some of the representatives from counties that sell alcoholic beverages.
Montgomery County is the real loser in this bill. We are going to take back to the county courthouse about $250,000 a year. We're going to take from the state general fund beginning about $20 million and then go from there. As a businessman, and the state capital is located here in Montgomery just like the courthouse, as a businessman, that is not a good deal. I can assure you that all of you who are reelected and come back here are going to have to look for some money to replace this money. It is one of the worst bills that this state has ever passed, and I am proud that I fought it this far and shall vote no on the final passage.
Well, first of all, you know, the wet counties in Alabama will get all the liquor revenue. The state general fund will keep 20% of the TVA funds, and the TVA counties will eventually get 75% of the funds, and then 5% of the funds are set aside to be used by the dry counties of Alabama. And what this will do is eventually will immediately give them a 30% increase, and they will also get the rapid growth that the TVA area has experienced in the past few years, which in effect will really benefit them more than getting liquor funds.
How did you come upon this agreement?
Well, the governor offered a proposal that was not acceptable to the wet counties. He wanted to provide for the dry counties to get liquor funds which we finally agreed to let go to the wet counties. So we came back with a counter proposal by which we were willing to give 5% of the TVA funds to be used for this purpose, and everyone agreed.
The $220 million school construction bond issue passed after the lieutenant governor caught some of the senators napping. A tuition grant bill for students attending private colleges passed the Senate after passing in the House earlier in the week. Representative Sonny Callahan of Mobile handled the measure for the administration.
Well, it's funded, the budget actually funded it, $3 million in the educational budget funded it to the Commission on Higher Education. The Enabling Act that passed both the House and the Senate and the governor signed really mandated how the Commission on Higher Education would distribute the $3 million. It requires that a maximum of $600 per student to be distributed to the various students with the thought in mind that if the $3 million is not sufficient, well then each student proratedly would drop down to whatever amount was available in the $3 million. So it does carry a $600 maximum.
When will this money be available to these students?
Money will be available this year. It will not be available or it cannot be sent to the private institutions in behalf of the student until October the 1, but it will be available this coming school year.
A bond issue of $15 million for prisons construction passed and will require voter approval. The Department of Pensions and Security will receive $5 million if the money comes into the general fund from taxes. Some other conditional appropriations includes slicing $6 million between Alabama State University at Montgomery and Alabama A&M. The University of Montevallo would receive $40,000 if there is a big enough surplus in state revenue. Perhaps the session proved how much work can be done by a legislative body when the administration spells out exactly what it wants and then sets a time limit to act. Representative Larry Morris of Alex City is one lawmaker who agrees.
And I think one of the things that you've got to consider is that if we'd been this productive during a 4-year period, I'd say particularly in the Alabama Senate, it might have been a different story, but I'm real happy with the progress we made this week, and I think some excellent bills were passed, some bills that the people were mighty interested in, and I think that they'll see some results as a result of our work here this week.
A lot of people tonight, including the speaker, and everybody's retired.
George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
I think it's done the best job of anybody up here, and that's John Pemberton.
The governor's property tax relief measures are on the way to the Senate after they were passed in the House today. There's some question if the vote was 67-9 or 75-8. The vote brought Representative Marilyn Quarles to the microphone to challenge the way the vote was cast in the 105-member body. What got you upset?
Well, I wasn't as much upset as that I want to see, I ran for office with the intentions of bringing integrity to the legislature, and what really upset me that much was to see that the Speaker of the House specifically said that there was going to be a lot of embarrassed people that did not vote for the lid bill, and that he wanted them to make sure that they knew what they were doing. And then after the vote was called and he announced it, well, then there was 8 from the North Alabama counties ran down there and changed their vote, which is against the rules of the House. And this is the way the legislature has been working, and this is why that we have an inefficient legislative body. After, and I would also like to say that after I challenged the chair to the 8 coming down and voting on this, that the speaker did say, you know, that he would let the journal reflect what I had challenged the votes on.
With the tax package out of the way, the House next launched into the bond issue for school construction and passed it. The House will act on all items in the governor's call before quitting today. That's the opinion of House Speaker Joe McCorkadale. The Speaker warned the lawmakers they would stay here to act on the governor's package before adjournment. He has threatened to stop the clock if needed. The Senate, meanwhile, passed the TVA bill establishing a distribution formula of money from the Tennessee Valley Authority paid to the state in lieu of property taxes. 19 North Alabama counties say they are entitled to the money. An amendment to give ABC liquor profits to wet counties only was voted down in the Senate. A $5 million conditional appropriation to the Department of Pensions and Security won quick Senate approval. And a measure allowing the governor to freeze or roll back utility rates considered excessive and a bill requiring tax measures be voted on before being opposed past the upper chamber. Those two items were not in the governor's call and are constitutional amendments. Another carryover from the regular session and passed in the Senate today was a bill to increase the size of the Public Service Commission from 3 to 5 members. The Senate didn't call it a filibuster, but there was a 3-hour talkathon after the state education budget was introduced. Dick Owen offered his substitute measure, stripping $11 million in amendments added in committee yesterday. Then, on a 30-4 vote, it was sent to the House, $15 million over budgeted. What plan of action now?
Well, I would hope that the Ways and Means Committee would consider this bill tomorrow and bring it out, report it out to the House so that they could take action Friday. Either amend the bill that we have passed and send it back for concurrence, or non-concur and let's have a conference committee. Or actually, really, what they need to do is take action, send it back to the Senate. We will either concur with what they have changed, or we will ask for a conference committee so that we can get out of here by Friday.
Do you think then you will be out here by Friday?
I hope so. We're doing everything we can to get out by Friday. We've tried to pass the appropriation bill for education. We've tried to pass, and we've passed the TVA bill. We have passed the P&S conditional appropriation. I would hope that the House would send us, in fact, they have sent us the lid bill package, the property tax control measures. We will take those up at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon in the Finance and Taxation Committee, report them out to the House to the full Senate at 4 o'clock, and they'll be eligible for passage on Friday.
The House got into a lengthy debate over the education budget, where efforts were made to further amend the House version. The original bill came out of the Ways and Means Committee close to $8 million in the red. Reporting from the state legislature, George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
To have a vote on the measure, that's all. The gentleman's already voted. Gentleman got a vote. Gentleman from Lauderdale. The speaker guy filed the chair whether this bill's got a certain. What about the conference? I'm sorry. I said, what about the conference?
Hey, look right here. Wally. Wally, shoemaker.
All in the voting, Bill 37, that's substituted.
To operate a profitable and popular hairstyle shop, it takes 18-hour days, and patient customers, those are some of the ingredients that went into the success of Howard's Style Shop here in Montgomery. Prince and Lloyd Howard are among the most successful of Montgomery's small black business people. With sons and nephews now being trained to eventually take over the business, the brothers Howards now have patrons from all over Alabama, from as far away as Atlanta and some parts of Florida and Louisiana. After more than 20 years of back-breaking work and many hardships, including an uncle who was tougher than a Marine drill instructor, the Howards have reached a point where others in the field are attempting to learn their system of styling. Both men are happy over the success and say that they are very thankful for the way things are going now. But they, like other young black businessmen, face insensitive bankers and other lenders. Theirs is a mixture of tales from the first years under their uncle to a small loan they were denied by a local lending institution.
He was the kind of person who believed in getting the job done the way he wanted done. And that was basic business principles with him. And we really enjoy it now because now we are beginning to see that it really paid off. I actually started in 51 as a shoe shine person for my uncle. So I volunteered to come along with him. And ever since then, I've been working. I answer telephone, shine shoes, and clean up the shop. Now, in 1957 is when I started cutting hair, when I started doing hair in the shop.
I came from that type of situation before we moved here to Montgomery. We went pretty much through the same type discipline situation with my father because we had a farm, and of course, we had to do everything on time. So the changeover wasn't really that difficult. Well, he made sure that everything was done well. And I kind of enjoyed it. If you didn't get it done well, of course you went through some changes. We went through some discipline things. He had his way of disciplining you. we set out to change the whole image of hairstyling, the whole image of the old barber look. You know, people had just a bad image. They felt that the barber was a shiftless kind of a fella that got drunk on the weekend after work. So we set out to change that image, and then we started to look for, we just changed our total program. We started to do a lot of different things that we had discussed here.
When we borrowed $1,000, we were supposed to buy some supplies that the fella had that only wanted $1,800 for it. And when we borrowed $1,000 and went back to him, we found out that he didn't have them anymore. So we deposited $1,000 in the bank. And after about 6 months, the time that we decided we were going to open up the shop and start our own business, after the depositing the $1,000, the bank realized that we had a little bit of money in the bank. We went back then.
Is this the same bank?
No, we didn't deal with that bank because we were kind of out with that bank. We still don't do business with that bank under no circumstances.
Will you ever do business?
Ever, not ever. Not ever do business with that bank, ever, no matter.
Are you bitter about the experience?
Well, I guess I'm still a little bitter. For one thing is that the bank was so cold to us. The man that we talked to in the bank just didn't turn us down. His attitude was the way that bittered me. Bankers at that time didn't have a lending organization, should I say. At that time, didn't have any feelings for black business. They just felt that black business was a pocket operation that just didn't have any way of being successful. I guess that's what they felt, you know. They didn't have any reason for putting any money into black business at all, no way, you know. For one reason, I guess, because there were very few young blacks who were interested in going into business. So we had no track record at that point. So white lending organizations just did not cater themselves to, did not give themselves at all to young blacks being in business. And the only way for black communities to survive is that black business move into the community and put up a reputable business. The reason our community go to nothing is because white businessmen come in and take all of the money away from the community and move across town where he lives.
I think the situation will gradually change. I think it's going to be on a major part of young black business people to educate our people the need to support these businesses. I think our people are going to have to be educated on the need to support black businesses. I think young blacks are going to have to come in and sit and talk with business people and really find out what their problems are, and of course obtain as much knowledge as possible before they attempt a business venture, because we're having too much young black failure in business. We got to do a much more thorough study on these businesses before we attempt to get into them, so that we can eliminate this failure. Because in failure, I think you gain knowledge, but a lot of times you obtain a certain amount of fear, and you don't make those attempts again. A businessman is simply structured a certain way anyway. He has to have the guts.
The Howard story is one of many where young, gifted, and black business people still suffer from the inability to secure the proper funds to get necessary stocks, to expand, and to have confidence that if needed, the sufficient amount of capital can be located. They had the guts to stick it out. Whether others in their position can do the same thing is a big question. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News for Composite.
Well, I want to study each of those. I think both. That is one way of placing a reign over bureaucracy and constantly questioned by Congress as to what they, $150 a week. If inflation goes up at 10% a year, then he's lost 50 proposes, and that to prevent a bracket jumping, and also to have a corresponding method of control, you would have an annual inflation adjustment factor that would be added. If you have an inflation that goes up at 10% a year, then you do not necessarily have to have a 10% corresponding cut in taxes, but it can be adjustment that is on a reasonable basis to prevent primarily bracket jumping, where not only you lose because of the dollar going down, but it jumps you into another bracket, particularly where you have a cost of living increase that you get.
It was pretty much the same song, only a different verse, as the legislature found itself tied in a deadlock somewhat about the same posture as it was during the regular session some 4 months ago. It appeared for a while that the lawmakers would complete what they were called to Montgomery to do and adjourn late tonight. For a time, that appeared doubtful. The complexion is changing, and it appears that it may be sooner than expected. Action has been completed on most of the governor's bills for which the session was called. $5 million in conditional money would go to the Department of Pensions and Security. The distribution of TVA money was also approved. Tied to the TVA measure was an amendment to take away from dry counties all profits from the sale of liquor in state-owned liquor stores. Waiting for final passage of the property tax relief bill, the Senate is now working on that. The education budget has gone to a conference committee where the two houses refused to agree on the allocation of monies. Passage appears promising, and that could come momentarily. A bond issue to build schools passed just a while ago. There was talk about failure to pass a school bond issue meant another session, and there was more talk about a news conference by Governor Wallace relative to that subject. Representative Rick Manley of Demopolis, one of the floor leaders for Governor Wallace in the House, sizes up the situation as he sees it right now.
I think that we're going to be able to finish everything up tonight. As you know, we passed the prison bond issue. Both houses have, and sent that to the governor. We've passed the supplemental appropriation for pension securities. We have just passed the school bond issue in both houses. I'm a member of the conference committee on the budget, and we have met twice, and we're meeting again in just a few minutes, and I anticipate we are going to be able to resolve the differences between the two houses on the budget. The only thing remaining to work out tonight will be the property tax package, and it looks as though that's going to come through. The TVA bill has been passed and has gone to the governor. It looks like every bill in the governor's proclamation is going to pass and be on his desk for signature by midnight.
Would you hazard a guess as to when you might be out of here?
I would guess or approximate about 9 o'clock.
Unless there's a change in the tone that exists right now, the legislature should be gone from this special session very shortly. Reporting from the state.
Washington.
Serving his 12th year as district attorney for Russell County, Attorney General candidate Bill Bitton cites his record and his knowledge of the law as his main qualifications. Bitton, who is also a criminal justice instructor in Phoenix City, says he'll tend to all matters of his office efficiently, but claims he'll put extra emphasis on consumer frauds, particularly those that prey on senior citizens.
We've proposed that we would do several things if we are successful. Number one, in talking to senior citizens around the state, I find that this group as a whole probably has been the victim of more fraudulent schemes than any other particular group. And we have told them, as we talk with them, that we would beef up our consumer fraud division and put more people in there, hopefully to be more responsive to whatever complaints they might have. Secondarily, there was a law passed approximately a year ago that would authorize the Attorney General's office to represent consumers before the Public Service Commission whenever the utility was seeking a rate increase. It would be my purpose. I ran an agency up there next door to the Public Service Commission for 5 years, and I've watched their proceedings, and just an assistant attorney general would not be as effective, I don't believe, as having a division in which you had people with expertise that could go in there and represent the consumer and give the Public Service Commission an opportunity to hear the consumer's side as well as the utility side. I'm not saying that some of the presentations by the utilities are not justified. I'm just saying the consumer has a right to be represented and make them prove their case before the people that are going to decide whether or not they're going to make our bills increase that we get once a month.
If approved, the consolidation would move all helicopter training facilities for the armed services to the Fort Rucker location. Last year, a similar measure passed in the House but failed in the Senate. The same thing happened the year before. But in an interview with Congressman Dickinson last week at his Capitol office, he said this year some new tactics will be used.
I'm going to attempt to get the House to vote to instruct the conferees, which means if the House votes to instruct them, then they can't give in to the Senate position. They have to hold fast no matter what, and hopefully that way, if I can bring it about, the Senate will have to recede to the House, or else they get no bill at all.
If it does go through in the Senate, in economic terms, what would this mean to the area surrounding Fort Rucker?
Well, it's really difficult to say because there will be about 80 more civilian instructors. There will be about 600 more pilots to go through. But there will have to be some additional facilities built to accommodate the training facilities, not just housing. It would just be a tremendous shot in the arm for the entire Fort Rucker complex, because this would finally and at last consolidate all helicopter training. Fort Rucker would train Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, National Guard, plus NATO troops, plus the contracts we have with Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Israel, and the Mideast countries. So this would really be the helicopter capital of the world for training, and it's very difficult to define the extent of the economic plus.
Dickinson says it will really be up to Alabama Senators John Sparkman and Marion Allen as to the amount of support given to the bill in the Senate. This is Dave Rickey, WSFA TV News, Washington.
Thousand industrial jobs. We woke up finally and started really pushing Alabama. The governor's got to be the salesman, and you've got to have good people to help you sell your program. The key to what we do in this state, insofar as the future is concerned, is bringing good paying jobs, not the jobs that just come in and take advantage of the labor market. And we've got to make sure that we are able to give the people who want to have industrial progress, the employers, the large numbers of skilled people, large numbers on short notice. And that's the key, really, to what we're going to do in this state. And I would work very hard to bring the industrial job, the permanent, good-paying industrial job into Alabama.
I want to go back to our phone calls. I would ask us to keep our answers as brief as possible so that we can get as many candidates, questions for the candidates as possible. This is Decision 78. Who is your question for?
Oh, my question for is Mr. Beasley.
Okay, what is your question?
My question is I would like to know his views on a decriminalization of marijuana.